Hey there everybody, it's time for another edition of Harry's Plunder, and this one I know I haven't done one in over a month, so I'm going to include everything that was in my February, that would have been in my February version, and to this one in my March edition. And I'm going to make this a little bit different because I'm not going to include the games in this particular video because I don't want to give any way of my opinions on the games I'm going to be reviewing. But just so that way you are aware of what I'm going to be reviewing in the next couple of days, I will be reviewing StarCraft 2 Heart of the Swarm, God of War Ascension, and Bioshock Infinite. So I'm going to have those reserved to the side and have those reviews coming out in a couple of days. But for now, I want to talk about the movies and the animes I picked up over the course of the last 2 months. And just to give you an idea of how big this stack is, let's just take a look at this. Yeah, I have to hold this up on my Katana Katari box set just so I can show you all at one big stack without toppling it over. I mean, look at this. Look at this. Yeah, this is what happens when 2 months do to me. Anyways, let's not stall anymore and get right to the good stuff. Alright, to start off with the movies is a childhood classic, or at least a lot of people consider it a childhood classic. It's from Disney, and I used to watch this movie a lot when I was a kid, but as an adult, maybe not so much anymore, and it's Peter Pan Diamond Edition. Now, like I just said, my family says I used to watch this movie all the time when I was little, and Peter Pan itself was never really one of those stories I really gravitated towards. I don't know why, it just never really super caught on for me. I did enjoy watching it as a kid, but it just never, I don't know, it just didn't have much of a lasting, memorable impact on me than, say, something like Toy Story, Mary Poppins, Brave Little Toaster, and so on. But after watching this again, I can kind of understand why I enjoyed this as a little kid. Not so much now as an adult, but I still think it's a good movie. I mean, it's Peter Pan, it's charming, it's innocent enough. I mean, say what you will about the whole, like, stereotypes of, like, the Indians and just all that stuff. It's still a fun, whimsical movie. It's still a fun adventure movie. I think kids will enjoy it. I mean, if I ever had kids, I wouldn't certainly mind watching Peter Pan. It's harmless enough, but it's still a decent movie to watch. Next up is a movie that I was sort of dared to watch a little bit recently, and it was a movie that I was asked to by my history teacher, my Eastern European teacher, to watch, as well as I watched one of Film Fan Pete's Blu-ray Roundup reviews, and he says, if you value yourself as a human being, or if you just see an important film, then you have to watch this movie, and that is Steven Spielberg's Schindler's List. Now, I was really hesitant to watch this movie because I heard it is incredibly depressing, and it's so kind of disturbing and hard to watch at certain scenes. And on some level, I actually agree with this. But the reason why I love this movie is because I feel like this is a movie that perfectly emphasizes the extremes both extremes of good and bad that people can represent. I mean, Liam Neeson in this movie, holy crap. I mean, if Liam Neeson, if you could put a resume of everything Liam Neeson has done in badass in films, this should be at the top of his list. Is saving over 1,000 Jews' lives and risking his own reputation, his own fortune, and his money, trying to save all these people. And he feels like, it seems like he doesn't really care at first, but then you realize that, yeah, he does honestly care. He realizes this is very screwed up, what's going to happen to these people. And there were certain moments in this movie that I dare not spoil it, but there were some moments where I was like, you better not go in this direction. But the movie did, and the way they dealt with it was it was difficult to watch, but it's supposed to be difficult to watch. And for that aspect, I can respect the movie. And it's not one of those movies that I would go back and watch readily, or with say, oh, I'm in a good mood, let's watch Schindler's List. No, this is a movie that I have to watch whenever I feel like, when I need to remind myself of the nature that human beings can both be really, really good and really, really horrible. And speaking of horrible, Ralph Fiennes in this movie, okay, I thought he was scary as Voldemort. I thought he was a great villain as Voldemort, but no, oh man, Amon, it's like he was just so terrifying in this movie. I mean, he'll shoot down any Jew at all, or any person at all, and for just being in his way. And it's just so terrifying to see, like, this person could snap at any moment. And just seeing every scene that he was in, and there was one scene involving a housemaid where it's just her and him in the room, and I was like on the edge of my seat just watching it. I was like, oh, this is gonna get so tense. He's gonna beat her senseless. He's gonna beat her senseless. And it was just sitting there, and it was just like, but the way the scene itself was executed was brilliant. I loved the way, and I loved the ending. I thought it was a great ending, and I will not spoil what this movie ends on. But seriously, if you appreciate like aspects of human nature, if you want to see like screams of human nature, this is an excellent movie to pick up and watch. And as well as the picture quality itself, fantastic. I'm usually not the humongous fan of black and white movies. I don't own that many black and white movies, but this is one I feel like this is actually serving it as a purpose. Like, it shows both the lights and the darks between Liam Neeson and Ralph Fiennes' character. Sorry. And watching those two contrast with each other, seeing they both have light and dark aspects to them, and realizing that these are just both extremes that these are emphasizing. They may both be Nazis, but they're different Nazis. And I know everyone likes to shit on the Nazis. I do it all the time as well. What they did was horrible, but this made me realize that even in the most scumbaggy-ish group of people that ever walked the face of the earth, or one of them, that there are still people in it that realize that that can be good and that can realize the potential for goodness. Anyways, Schindler's List, excellent movie. Really depressing at some points. I'm not gonna lie. There were some moments that just made me want to tear up, but the message it had at the end, or at least the hopefulness of the end, it just made it added so much ease. It was so much easier to embrace the movie as a whole, rather than just be a complete just downtrodden mess or just a complete crushing of human soul. And I just love this movie. Next up, continuing the Spielberg vibe, is actually one movie that came out this month, and I think maybe last week it was. I'm not quite sure off the top of my head. And it actually won. It won 2 Academy Awards, including Best Actor. It's Daniel Day-Lewis in Lincoln. Now, you already know my thoughts on Lincoln, saying that it was in one of my top 5 movies of last year. Loved Lincoln. It's one of the few dialogue-based movies that cannot bore me at all. I mean, I enjoyed every second that Daniel Day-Lewis was on screen, and just loving his portrayal of Lincoln. I'm a huge history nut. I love looking into history. I like looking into the past, seeing all the little mysteries and just little hidden corners, particularly like ancient mythology. So something around the Civil War, World War I, World War II, usually doesn't get my attention that much. This is, however, one exception, because to me, this is the most grounded performance. I honestly can't think of another performance of Lincoln that I can see better than this, at least to this point. And Daniel Day-Lewis, I don't know what he does to get into the character, but I honestly could not see the actor behind President Lincoln, the character President Lincoln. His portrayal is so good, and it's so humble, and I love Lincoln's sense of humor, his dry sense of humor, how he always has a little story, and how his tactics of talking with people, he's so relaxed and calm. But yet, you see all the drama in his family life, and seeing all little things about him that just made me realize that this man was, despite his own personal ideas about slavery, and realizing that everyone has the right to dignity. Everyone deserves the right, and slavery needs to be abolished. And it's one of those movies that it makes you feel really good about how someone, despite their whatever personal preferences they may be, they can come together and realize that yes, we need to do the right thing and abolish something that is so demeaning towards people. And I love movies like this. In fact, if I had to take a guess, like just take a wild shot in the dark, I would say this is probably one of my top 3 Spielberg movies. Probably maybe my favorite. Probably because it's not like his usual movies where it all focuses on some kind of conflict. It's a different kind of conflict where it's the war with words. In fact, actually no, considering I just saw Schindler's List, I would say both of these movies together, I find them extremely respectable, but in terms of rewatchability factor, I would definitely go with Lincoln more. And just to give an idea, the picture quality in this looks really sharp. There's a lot of really big, really sharp shadows in this movie. And the way it just shows like all the aspects, the little dealings, and the really backdoorsy nature of something like this, of trying to get a bill passed like this, it's really hard to not notice the shadows. It's kind of symbolic. And I'm not trying to be pretentious when I say that. I'm just seeing this as like the imagery and the style of the camera work is actually intentional, as well as all the little slow dialogue segments where it's all about discussing like the political strategies and saying like, well, you can either have a Confederate peace or this 13th Amendment. You can't have both. I love that contrast in saying you have a super important conflict to end, but you also have a major ethical conflict. So which one is more important? I love this movie. I absolutely adore it. I highly recommend it to anyone who is of a historical. I mean, my dad is a huge Lincoln fan, and I went and saw this movie with him because it's one of those few things I get to do with my dad, and I love doing it with him. And this is one movie we're both excited as hell to see. And I asked him, what did he think of Daniel Day-Lewis's Lincoln? He said if he doesn't get an Oscar for Best Actor, then he will be shocked out of his mind. And I completely agree. He totally deserved the Oscar. Anyways, pick up Lincoln. It's a great movie. If you're in historical pictures, if you love Civil War movies, you're probably gonna like this movie. And if you just like enjoying a good performance, a good actor performance, just getting totally lost in the role, definitely pick this up. It's worth the buy. Next up is another historical picture, and one that I originally didn't intend to buy this one on Blu-ray because I don't know, it just never caught my attention, but since it is regarded as going to be extra credit for my classes, I figured, well, why not give it a shot and see what it's like? And I do like historical pictures, I really do, but I'm more of an ancient myth kind of person. That's more like thing. But anyways, it's from the Criterion Collection, and it's Bernardo Berdolici's The Last Emperor. Now, for those of you who don't know what this is supposed to be a recollection of the last emperor of China in, what dynasty is it? Give me a second. Emperor Puyi, last emperor of the Qing dynasty, last emperor of China. I mean, this is I haven't had a chance to watch this yet, but I've heard from one of my professor, my modern China professor. She says this is a very accurate representation of the last emperor of China. And I'm not one of those people that goes into a historical picture that just completely craps on historical accuracy and say, well, that didn't happen, or that didn't go, or it didn't take place like that, or that city wasn't like that back then, or this is the wrong location. I just don't do that. I like to watch people's reinterpretation of certain time periods and seeing what they do with it, as long as it's not historically insulting. I mean, granted, I do watch some because I enjoy watching those reinterpretations, like Gladiator. Historically accurate? Absolutely not. Of course not. But I still love watching it because of the fact that it is still a representation of a certain time period, and I just enjoy the movie. I don't try to nitpick every single historical detail and try to see like, well, that's a terrible movie because it's not historically accurate. I already know that going into it. Or like Troy. Might be a bit of a guilty pleasure, but I still enjoyed the movie. I still think, like, in all honesty, I think that would be more of a realistic interpretation of how the Trojan War actually would work or something like that. Maybe, I don't know. But Last Emperor, I'm actually really excited to see this. This is actually, I think this is the third Criterion Blu-ray that I own. The other ones owning are Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai and the original Godzilla from like 1954, I think. I think it's 54. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that. I may be wrong about it, so I apologize. But yeah, I'm really excited to take a look at this. I heard it's a long movie, but Criterion, I know, does a lot of really good transfers. I can't wait to look at the picture quality on this, so hopefully it lives up to the hype. Next up is another movie that I wasn't really sure if I was gonna like this movie again, because it is regarded as a classic, I know, by a lot of people, and let me just make this clear. I'm usually really hit and miss when it comes to 80s movies. I don't know what it is about the 80s. Everyone seems to make this idea or ideology that the 80s were like this golden, utopian age of cinema, and everything regarded as just absolute gold or something like that. It's just, it may not be the actual thing that people are saying, but that's how they're putting it off as. And every time I watch an 80s movie or something, it's very hit and miss. It's like, well, I like this movie, I don't like that movie. Like, I can't give an example right off the top of my head. It just feels very hit and miss. Now, granted, there are some 80s movies that I absolutely love, like The Princess Bride, Back to the Future, and this is another one, and it is The Terminator. Now, this is the third time, and I picked up the remastered edition because I heard the earlier transferred versions was garbage, and so I decided to pick this one up because I hadn't seen The Terminator in a while. I love Terminator 2. It's one of my all-time favorite movies, and Terminator 2 is just a great sequel, and I remember reading another fellow, a YouTuber by the name of Chris Stuckman, and he says that the Terminator 1 is really, really underrated. And after watching this again for like the third time, I kind of have to agree. In fact, the more I watch Terminator 1, the more I like it. And I don't know what it is. It may be because seeing young Arnold in his kind of like in his prime or around Terminator 2 and watching those two movies, those to me are like my favorite Schwarzenegger flicks. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger, say what you will about the guy, he is fun to watch. He may not be the best actor in the world, I would probably not even say he's a good actor, but he is still infinitely fun to watch. It's still a solid sci-fi movie. And a lot of people seem to be getting a little confused when it comes to the Terminator paradox. And for those of you who don't know, it's when Kyle Reese has to come back from the future to father John Connor, who has to go send Kyle Reese back. I mean, it's kind of a strange paradox, but I've actually taken the time out since watching this movie to try and figure out a way to justify the paradox. And I think I may have come up with my own little theory, but that's for another video for another time. Anyways, the picture quality in this remastering is absolutely beautiful. I mean, a lot of shadows, a lot of neon lights considering it's the 80s, and the sound of itself like 80s synth music. I'm usually not the hugest fan of 80s synth music, but it sounds really good, and I just love the tone of this. I love the character arc that Linda Hamilton, Sarah Connor has going through the movie, realizing that thinking that she's not this strong person, and Kyle saying like, no, you need to be stronger than you think you can be. Just that message, and it's like, you know you have this potential to be great, and you're going to do great things. And just watching that, I was like, that is a good character arc. I love watching it. I love Michael Biehn. I love Linda Hamilton. I love Schwarzenegger in this movie. I just love this movie. It's just really fun sci-fi. It may not be the deepest movie in the world, but it still is a very fun movie. And I will admit the effects, in my opinion, are a little bit dated with the stop-motion Terminators and stuff. But then again, okay, I will say this, it's dated, but I still enjoy the movie. I still like it overall. And I definitely like the realistic action with some of the stuff, like when Arnold Schwarzenegger has to punch through the window or something like that. And did anyone else kind of snicker a little bit once his eyebrows are gone and he just looked really, really funny looking? I don't know. I just found that kind of humorous. Anyways, if you have not picked up Terminator yet, if you have the old editions, I say trade that in, get the remastering, well worth the price. Oh, and by the way, there's also kind of a cool little retrospective back when the first one came out, so it might be interesting. If you're interested in that sort of thing, it's pretty quick and won't take much of your time. Either way, pick up Terminator. Anyway, next on my list is Academy Award winner for Best Picture of this year, and from Ben Affleck, starring Ben Affleck, Bryan Cranston, Alan Arkin, and John Goodman, is Argo. Now, I didn't know what to expect while watching this movie. I mean, I heard the plot premise saying that there's several American embassy workers working in Tehran who end up having the embassy base taken, and they have to hide out in the Canadian ambassador's house. And Ben Affleck is working with the CIA, I think, and he is trying to put together this fake movie called Argo, and realizing that he has to assemble all these characters, all these Hollywood people played by Alan Arkin and John Goodman, and try to produce the most realistic fake movie they can in order to save these people and try to get them out. And to think that this was actually a true story, it blows my mind just seeing how this actually worked and seeing like, there's no way they're gonna fall for this. This is so ludicrous. But it's one of those ludicrous plans that's so good, it works. It really does work, or at least it might. Oh man, if you have not seen Argo, I really suggest picking this up. It's so good. And I'll say this, the last 30 minutes of this movie had me sitting on the edge of my seat the entire time. I'm really happy that Ben Affleck won Best Picture for this movie. I wish he had won Best Director, because I feel like the guy kind of has deserved it at this point, because he's done Gone Baby Gone. He's done, what else did he do? Crap. Oh crap, I'm forgetting. Oh, damn it. The Towel, that's it. Sorry. So it just came to my mind. It was like bank robbery movie, took place in, it was like, The Towel, there we go. Anyways, Argo, really damn good movie. Just well acted. I wish that he got nominated for Best Director, but unfortunately that went to Ang Lee. I haven't seen Life of Pi yet. I don't know what to think about that movie, so I'll have to watch it, but either way, Argo is a damn good movie. And the picture quality, also really good. I mean, it's Warner Brothers. They usually don't slack off when it comes to their releases. I'm just happy the fact that I'm able to finally see this, and the fact that I can just take solace in the fact that this is actually a true story. Maybe with a couple of details. I don't know how exact it was. I'm pretty sure the last, maybe along the lines, there's a certain part in the third act that I won't spoil, that I'm pretty sure did not happen. Pretty sure that was just Hollywoodized, but at the same time, it made more tension for the movie. So as a movie, it worked, but in terms of historical accuracy, maybe not. But either way, it's still an entertaining movie. It's still an intense ride all the way through, and I highly recommend Argo. Great, great movie. Alright, taking a break from the serious movies a little bit and going back to the Disney side of the fence is one of my favorite movies. Oh man, this was one movie that I was so worried it was going to screw up, because every time they have done a video game centered movie, or at least one where the topic of video games was discussed or emphasized, every one of them has been terrible. There's only two, in my opinion, that have actually worked, that are centered around a video game idea. And say what you will about the franchises, I understand that they're not the biggest fans, but in terms of developing the spirit of the video game and turns translating into a movie, in my opinion, the Sonic the Hedgehog movie and Final Fantasy VII Advent Children are the only two that have ever successfully done it right. And again, say what you will about the franchise, I understand that not everybody's a fan of those. But I think those translate at least its spirit and its storyline and its atmosphere very well, at least translate it well. But the movie I'm talking about is Wreck-It Ralph. Now, I know this is technically not a video game-based movie, it's just a movie that is centered in a video game world that happens to have cameos from other video game-related characters. And when I saw this movie, I was just in blissful awe of just the fact that they finally made a movie that's centered in a video game-ish world, and they made it work. Disney, I want to hug you. I want to hug the director. Who's the director of this? Oh crap, this is going to be bothering me now again. Come on. Crap. Nope, it's not saying. Oh well. And with Wreck-It Ralph, I just love all little cameos, and I was like a little kid, and just seeing like, oh my god, I know every single one of these characters. Like when they go to Game Central Station, I was pausing it frame by frame to see if I could recognize every single character, and I pretty much did. And it was like, and there was probably some in the background I couldn't tell, but and when Ralph goes to like this bad guys anonymous meeting, I was literally picking out every character, every franchise they were from. I was like, oh my god, it's Robotnik from Sonic, it's Zangief, it's M. Bison, it's Clyde, it's all these different characters. I just love them. And I would consider this like the Who Framed Roger Rabbit of this generation. In fact, this is one movie I love so much, I kind of want to adopt it into my childhood and saying, like, I know I'm 21 years old, and I'm technically no longer a kid, but I would love to adopt this movie into my childhood, along with Toy Story, along with Mary Poppins, along with Brave Little Toaster, and just say, like, you know what, I love this movie. It finally gave a movie for video game fans to be proud of, and to be saying, you know what, we can have our own good movie, and have it be a hit in theaters, and I'm glad that and I will say this movie should have won Best Animated Film of the Year, not Brave. I don't care what people say about Brave, that did not deserve to be Best Animated Film. This did. And I know I'm a little bit biased, I understand that, but for Brave, that movie, there were some good parts to it, but as a whole, Wreck-It Ralph was the better film. It had better characters, it had a better story, it proved that you could do a movie in a video game world and make it heartwarming and great, and it had such a creative world. I mean, some of those worlds like Heroes Duty, maybe not have that as a video game, but the Sugar Rush, the kart racing game, I would have loved to play that game. I was like, I want that game. I'm surprised they didn't do like a tie-in for the movie itself, like have that game on, like, I don't know, as like a downloadable title on Xbox Live or PSN, or maybe for Steam. I mean, I would have loved to play it. I thought it would have been great. But as it is, I love Wreck-It Ralph. If you have not seen it, really just check it out. And my light just... Hold on a second. Sorry about that, folks. I try to have this little piece of paper on my lamp to try to soften the light a little bit, because I don't want this thing glaring at my face. Anyways, Wreck-It Ralph, I just love this movie. I highly recommend it. If you have not seen it, pick it up immediately. And it's just like, finally, we finally have a good video game-ish movie. And hopefully, and I hope that there is a sequel. Alright, next up is a series that a lot of people have been requesting that I watch. A lot of my family members are saying, you have to watch this show. Your dad loves it. My history teacher says, you gotta watch this. My friends say I gotta watch it. And it's just like, alright, I'll watch it and see what I think about it. And that is Game of Thrones. Now, to be clear, I've only watched the first 2 episodes of Season 1, which is what I have right here. And as soon as I was done with the first episode, I was thinking, this is really good. I like this. And then when the second episode was done, I was like, I must see more because this show is awesome. And I was just so, I was like, and I always kind of slap myself for like, why didn't I watch this before? Why didn't I never watch this when it first came out? Because I'll be honest, I don't really watch that many TV shows anymore because most of the stuff I heard on now is crap. I mean, I don't watch Walking Dead. I don't watch Breaking Bad. Shows like that I just don't care for. They just don't strike me as interesting. I mean, the last show I watched, live action show that I watched on TV was BBC Sherlock. And I love Sherlock, don't get me wrong. But it's just nothing else caught my attention. And to me, it was like Game of Thrones when I watched this. When I first saw it, I was like, this to me feels like, it feels like HBO is going to try to recapture the spirit of Rome. And I loved Rome. Back when it first came out, and I saw it when it first came out, I was just thinking to myself, why are they trying to do this game? Why not just bring back Rome? But then again, that's just me, my normal, ideal mindset of just bringing back a show that was only canceled after 2 seasons, even though it could have been so much better, or could have been so much more than what they gave it. Either way, I watched Game of Thrones. I was really impressed with the first 2 episodes. I can't wait to see the rest of the series. And please don't tell me any spoilers, but I'll say, what would you say is better? Is Season 1 better or Season 2 better? And are you excited for Season 3 coming out? Because I'm really excited about the fact that I'm just like, I finally get a chance to watch the series, and let me know, because I heard this, for crying out loud. That's the 3rd time that this has happened. This is show long is good, lighting's good. Alright, sorry about that, folks. Just, if it's not one thing, it's another. Trying to get a lot of this stuff anyways. Back to Game of Thrones. Just real quick, love the show, really interested in seeing it. What's your favorite season? And who's your favorite character in Game of Thrones right now, without spoiling anything? And I'm really curious about the lore and seeing, maybe there's going to be dragons in it. Don't spoil it to me if there are dragons, but the possibility was I want to see them do this. And so, really excited about watching the rest of Game of Thrones. Tell me what's your favorite season. Tell me are the books any good? Because I heard this is actually based on a series of books. Are those really good? Because I might actually, if those are good, I might actually pick those up and try to see them for myself. Anyways, Game of Thrones, really excited to check it out. Alright folks, we're coming down to the wire, but now we're going to get into the animes that I picked over the course of the last 2 months. Now, in the course of February, I really didn't have that many to pick from, or at least something that just wasn't picking up my interest or picking up my radar. And just seeing well, maybe this idea. Because normally the way I go about picking anime is I usually try to get it on Blu-ray, for one thing, because I want it in the best picture quality that I can find it. Or try to find it, and I don't care if I have to import the sucker, I will find it. And I'm usually really good at finding really rare or something that's really hard to find. Usually good at it. And so, when I try to find good picture quality, or at least find that, I try to get the best I can, but I also try to find a premise that is interesting or has me intrigued, either by the sheer ludicrousy of it, or something that intrigues me, something at all. And I know this is going to sound completely contradicting to what I just said, but the first one I actually picked up over the course of this month is actually Battle Time Paradox. Now, before you start booing at me, or someone starts jumping the shark and starts saying what a piece of crap this is, okay, let me be clear. I probably share the same mindset as many others when they first saw this cover. It's going to be bottom of the barrel, crap anime, fan service up the wall, terrible story, terrible dubbing, and I can fully understand that because that's what I thought too when I saw this cover. But then I actually started looking it up in reviews and seeing different people talking about it, and I've heard it's actually not that bad. In fact, it might actually be kind of interesting. And the way I sum it up like this: if any of you have watched Futurama, you know that one episode where it involves all those multiple universes in a box, and how everyone else's own universe is in a box, and they all travel between universes and different versions of their worlds. And you see that one bit where Farnsworth puts that box over his head and he says, "Oh wow, a universe entirely filled with women. I'll save that for later." That's pretty much this show. It's the idea that there's this one little girl, there's this young girl named Hideyoshi, and who is praying at this temple, and some reason unknown to her, she gets warped back to feudal era Japan. But this is feudal Japan with a twist. It is a universe where the entire cast is filled with women. Like, all the famous warlords and all the famous people during that time period are all women, including the one on the cover here, Nobunaga Oda, or Oda Nobunaga, however you prefer to say it. I'm not quite... I've heard different people say it different ways, like it's Nobunaga Oda or Oda Nobunaga, I don't know. And just looking at it, I was just like, okay, this might be a little bit interesting. It might lend itself to some comic relief, or might be kind of fun to watch. And so, it's only 13 episodes, so it's pretty easy to get through. I haven't had a chance to sit down and watch the whole thing, but the concept alone had me intrigued, and it might be fun to just, even if it's terrible, it might lend some funny humor for a review one day. So, and yes, if there is a lot of fan service, I will mention it, but again, I've mentioned this before, I try to ignore fan service. I don't see it important to comment on. I don't see it, if people, I know people gripe about fan service all the freaking time, and I was just like, just leave it be, leave it alone, and I just don't see a point, really. I understand it can be annoying for some. If it hinders the story, fine. I can perfectly understand that. But I feel like if it's a bad story, it's a bad story by itself. Fan service is really not going to do anything to hurt it or hinder it or whatever. And I understand that many people do not agree with me. That's fine. That's just my personal stance on it. I just try to ignore it. I try to just let fan service be fan service, and just let it do its own thing. But I just try to take the story and the action and the premise for what it is. And it seems like an interesting premise. So, who knows? I could be right, I could be completely wrong. We'll just have to wait and see. Next up is one anime that, oh man, I've been waiting for this for a long time, because this is without a doubt one of my all-time favorite series, and it is Rurouni Kenshin, the New Kyoto Arc. Now, I love Rurouni Kenshin. I absolutely adore Rurouni Kenshin. I mean, it was one of the first animes I ever really took notice of. I mean, it was one of the first animes, probably the first anime I ever got emotionally invested into the characters and the story that was going on, and the romance between Kenshin and Kaoru was just so beautiful to watch. And just to emphasize how much I love it, hold on one second. Here is my actual Kenshin box set with all 3 seasons in it, and I just love the story. I love the first 2 seasons. Third season, in my opinion, is the weakest, but this one, the New Kyoto Arc, I'm not exactly sure how this one works. It says it's a 2-part OVA, and from what I'm looking at, it looks like a recap, and just looking for the screenshots in the back of this, as well as the fact that it's called New Kyoto Arc, it makes me think that this is a reinterpretation or a re-envisioning of Season 2, and how they're going to do that in 2 OVAs, I have no idea. Otherwise, it's going to feel really rushed. But I love Kenshin either way. I love the series. I absolutely adore it. I'm really excited to take a look at this. I love Kenshin so much. He's like the ultimate badass samurai. In fact, I've seen a couple of samurai animes like Samurai Champloo, Samurai Deeper Kyo. I haven't seen Samurai 7. But I am curious to watch it. But Rurouni Kenshin, in my opinion, is the best samurai anime I have seen yet. And probably for a lot of people, it's probably the best samurai anime ever. It's just the first one that ever really made me emotionally invested, and I love this. And it was literally the first anime that made me cry. But Fooly Cooly was the one that made me realize it as a genre, as its own style, as anime as its own style. But Kenshin was the one that got me emotionally invested. I love it to death. I can't wait to see Kenshin again. In fact, I'm actually thinking of importing all the other Kenshin stuff, or Kenshin Blu-rays, just so that way I can have all of it together, as well as the live-action movie that came out recently. I really wish that someone would just release that here in the States, because if it's with subtitles, I will buy it. Buy it on Blu-ray and with subtitles. I'm fine with that. I want to see that, because I heard it's really, really good. And so, just really excited to check out Kenshin again. I really loved it, and if you love Kenshin too, just pick this up now, or I'm pretty sure you already have. Next up is a movie that is a sequel to that I've been trying to get a hold of for a while, and none of the stores I had in my local Dallas area had them in stock, so I had to order it off of Right Stuff, and that's Mardock Scramble: The Second Combustion. Now, I recently reviewed the first movie, the first Compression, and you know I loved it. I tried to analyze every little bit of that movie in detail, analyze the colors, the soundtrack, the characters, the story, the aspect, and the personality of the world. and I cannot wait to see the second movie, because the first one ended on such a cliffhanger. It was like, I must see the second one right now. From what I've been hearing, though, it's not as good as the first one, but I will reserve my own judgment till I actually see it. I'm not going to use someone else's judgment to base my own opinion off of, and so I'm really excited to see this one, and I hopefully like it more than the first one, because, and I don't know if that's going to be possible, but I will still give it a chance to prove itself, because I love Mardock. I love the fact that it's cyberpunk. I love the genre itself. I love the premise. I love the characters. I love the world. I just love everything Mardock Scramble. Really underrated anime, in my opinion. So if you haven't checked out Mardock Scramble, I suggest checking out the first impression, which I have right here. This is what it looks like. And just one more thing, I actually picked up the first volume of the manga recently because I wanted to check out the source material and see how close it was to the actual film itself. And from what I can tell, it's relatively close. There's a couple of grammatical errors with the manga edition, but then again, it's pretty close. It's give and take, whatever. It's always going to be translation errors or translation issues. I don't know how much. It doesn't cover anything in the second combustion. I know that because I can remember the first compression pretty well, and that doesn't cut off at that. So I'm really excited to see where the second combustion goes. I really want the third exhaust to come out soon. I can't wait to see it. So hopefully it's just as good as the first one. And finally, the last thing I have for today is a box set that I have been anticipating for, because of the fact that I watched its predecessor just recently, and I love the premise behind it. I haven't finished it yet, but it's one that's like, I must immediately get the sequel because I am so curious to see where the story goes. And that is Nisei Monogatari. Now, for those of you who maybe watched my first Plunder video, or I think it was my January edition, I got a hold of Bakemonogatari. This is actually supposed to be the sequel to Bakemonogatari, and I don't know how much further it takes away from the first one, so I can't describe that. But from what I can tell, at least from the way the description is saying, it involves Aragaki and Sejukahara, involving more mysteries, involving spiritual creatures and all these different characters, and seeing like different psychological aspects, and saying like every one of these people has a secret or some mystery to them, and they spend the entire episode trying to unravel that mystery. But the point of itself is the conversations between the characters. I love watching the characters talk. And I just love, and sure, the conversations themselves may not really lead to a point, but their talking is so interesting to watch. And I'll say this, hopefully it's slower than the first one, because I'm not going to lie, when I tried to watch the first Bakemonogatari, I was so trying to focus on the screen itself and try to pay attention to every little detail that I could. It was passing by so fast that I literally could not pay attention and just sit down and sit with the art direction and just look at how beautiful everything was. Granted, everything looked gorgeous, I'm not going to lie. And the sound was off the walls and incredible. Like, I remember little aspects of the show in the first season in Bakemono, and seeing, like, I remember this one scene where Aragaki is running down this hallway trying to catch up to Sejukahara, and I heard every single footstep, like this loud bam, 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 and you heard everything. It was like this long echo. And I was like, wow, that is a really good sound in this show. And I love the fact that Aniplex took their time to make it look as good as it possibly could. I may disagree with their pricing as a whole, but at least they don't half-ass their quality. And so I'm really curious to see Nisei Monogatari. I'll have to finish Bakemono first, and then I'll watch this. But once I do, I'll probably review both of those in tandem with each other to see, like, Bakemono first and then Nisei Mono. But at the same time, I'm really excited to see it, and hopefully I can, and now that I have this, I can kind of sort of complete the Gatari trilogy in my mindset. I still need to pick up Katana Gatari Part 2, so I can have all of them together. Even though Katana Gatari is not related to it at all, it's just easier for me to say, so I just put it together in the same category. Either way, really excited about Nisei Monogatari, and I can't wait to watch it. Alright everybody, that was a lot of stuff I had to get through. I'm sorry if this took a little bit longer. I'm sorry if this is a little bit rushed more than I usually do, and I don't go as detailed as much. It's just that was so much stuff I got over the course of the last 2 months, and I didn't even mention the game, so well, I just like, I literally could not mention everything that I got over the course of the last 2 months. So I just had to cram it all in and try to get it out and get my thoughts in rapid fire as much as possible. Anyways, tell me what you guys picked up over the course of last month. If you got anything along the same lines of stuff that I did, or if you got something different, or you got any recommendations of stuff I should look into, just comment below and tell me what you think. I'm really curious to see different people suggest different things and try to expose me to stuff I never saw before. Anyway, guys, that's it for this edition of Harry's Plunder. I'll have the reviews up for StarCraft, God of War Ascension, and Bioshock Infinite out soon. And until next time, I'm Perry the One-Armed Legend. You name it, I can play it.